Hello once again, this is Tony Reeves. Let's talk about a few things in terms of figuring out what you actually need. Once you finally go out on your own, and I mean you're out, I'm not talking about a couple of days, you've been out about a month or so, then what ends up happening is that you start analyzing and deciding, what do you actually need? Trust me, when you get everything set up from the very beginning, whether it be your office space, whether it be business cards, websites, whatever the case may be, you may find yourself after about a month or so realizing that maybe you don't need all of those things. So here's a few things you need to think about. One of the things I learned very early on is how important was expansion to me. At one particular point, I literally had 2 office locations in 2 different cities, and I had a virtual office space. But the reality is that when I looked at it, I didn't really need those office spaces because I was meeting most of my clients either in their homes or at court. So what you're gonna have to do fairly early on is decide, is it really necessary to have multiple locations depending on what you're doing, or can you keep it condensed to certain locations that serve the purpose for your customer? Another thing that I found very quickly was evaluating whether or not I needed things like file cabinets. My firm was almost completely green. So things like file cabinets and certain little desks and so forth, I didn't need because I was basically just keeping crap in those things. So those were taking up space that I could use for other things. So one of the things you're gonna probably recognize early on is you're gonna probably start identifying what certain types of equipment that you actually need or actually don't need. Depending on what your services are, regardless of what you do, you're gonna ask yourself, do you need to be paper or paperless? If you go to a lot of the newer stores these days, you'll be surprised where you used to see good old-fashioned cash registers, if they even use those anymore, to people using squares or their phones or even an iPad or tablet in order to ring up transactions. So you have to ask yourself how much of what you're gonna do is gonna be virtually based and how much do you actually need hardcore paper in order to do what you need to do. And then finally, stepping out on faith. Now, when I say stepping out on faith, you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, didn't I open up my doors already? No. What's gonna happen is that when you're talking to all these different people who are giving you suggestions about things you should do, they're gonna tell you about things that they think works or maybe from their own experiences. But what you're gonna find fairly quickly is that you're gonna start seeing opportunities to do things different from your colleagues. And that can be terrifying. The reason why it's terrifying is because if they haven't tried it or you don't know if it's worked, you may worry that it may not work for you. Don't worry about that. Step out on faith. Give it a shot. Give it a try. You may be surprised if you do something different, it might actually work for you.